Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Session Ecosystem AMA. I'm Alex Linton, the president of the Session Technology Foundation, and I'm joined today by the lovely Chris McCabe and Kee Jeffries, co-founders of Session. Good morning, gents.
Good morning, sir.
Hey, nice to be here.
So here's how this is going to work. You guys, the lovely Session community, have sent in some questions to us, and we are going to go through and answer as many of them as thoroughly as we possibly can. This video will be posted up on the Session YouTube channel, and you'll also be able to find some clips across our different social media channels. So without further ado, I think let's just hop straight on into it, start answering some questions. First off, we're going to go through some questions about Session token. So first question, let's go. Could you provide an update on the status of Sesh being listed on CoinMarketCap?
Yeah, so the application process has begun. All the details have been sent across. I think it takes a few weeks for that to go live. We are live currently on CoinGecko and DexScreener and a few other platforms that provide a lot of information on the token. So yeah, check out CoinGecko for now, and we'll be on CoinMarketCap shortly.
Excellent. And a little follow-up to that from the same person. Are there any plans or timelines for listing Sesh on centralized exchanges? Understanding both of these aspects will help the community gauge the token's accessibility and visibility moving forwards.
Yeah, so centralized exchanges they're a good promotional tool. From my perspective, it'd be great to see Session launched on a centralized exchange when Pro launches as well to maximize exposure towards the token and the application, and sort of bring all that together with Session token and Session Messenger. So hopefully, Q4 is when the focus will be back on centralized exchanges, but it could happen anytime before or after that as well.
Excellent. All right, next question. This is more of a technical one for you, Kee. There's a 25,000 Sesh stake requirement to run a full node, which can be contributed by multiple people. What happens to a multi-contributor node when one of the contributors decides to withdraw their locked stake?
Yeah, so it's actually very similar to the way that it worked in Oxen. Essentially, you can have up to 10 contributors to a node, and if any of those contributors decides to withdraw or exit from the node, that starts a timer, and then after that timer ends, everyone gets unstaked from that node. So very similar to the Oxen process. We do have some better controls in the smart contract now. We have this thing called a small contributor, and that's if you're under a certain amount of Session tokens, then you have to wait at least 30 days from when you staked into the node to request an exit. So there's a bit more time required now, because what we saw in Oxen was that there was there were a few contributors who would just come along and contribute to a node and then immediately request an exit, which would start this 15-day timer. So we've actually set up some rules so that you have to wait at least 30 days, and then there's another period of time that you have to wait as well before the node unlocks. So that should make it a little bit easier for those operators who are running multi-contributor nodes.
On the back of that, staking in a staking portal is so much faster and easier than what it used to be with Oxen. It's so straightforward. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go to, what's the website?
Stake.session.org.
Yeah, stake.session.org. It is so clean. And I guess that's one of the key reasons, like moving across to Arbitrum as well and being EVM compatible, it just makes all these things so much more streamlined.
Absolutely. Another question about staking, Kee. Is there a program to make it easier for setting up a node, for example, with a GUI or an Inapp setup?
Yeah, there isn't currently. Right now, you have to, say, grab a VPS or use your home computer and set up the service node software. And then you'll get a code from that service node software. You enter that, it's like a URL. And then that allows you to prepare your registration and actually stake through the staking portal. But something that has been quite interesting, and I think that it is even easier right now with the new staking setup that we have, is potentially the ability to hook into some of these VPS's auto setup tools. So I know, for example, DigitalOcean has this imaging thing where you can kind of install an image from the marketplace. And we could consider also putting Session or the Session node software up on that marketplace. So you kind of go provision a droplet on DigitalOcean, and then you install the Session node software from the marketplace. And then maybe you only have to run a couple of commands, or maybe there's some sort of web interface where you can just click a few buttons and you can actually just stake from there. So that's something that's interesting to us, but it would require a little bit more work. There is also a trade-off there, because you do want the node operators in the network to have some kind of level of technical understanding, because if something goes wrong with their node, like they should be able to log into that node and maybe run some commands to fix it up. So there's a kind of balance between making it, too easy where, you just have everyone coming in, and too hard where like the cost to run a node in terms of like the administration costs becomes high, and that reflects in the fees that people charge for nodes. I think another thing that like we've always been focused on at Oxen is native like delegated staking as well. So, we have that whole system where you can have an operator run a node and you can stake into their node. So you don't need to take on any of the technical complexity of running the node yourself. You can just stake into someone else's. So yeah, there's a little bit of context on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Kee. Chris, this one's for you. Many projects aim to list on a centralized exchange at TGE, but Session Token went with a DEX launch. What was the reasoning for that?
Yeah, so coming up to launch, we had to make a few choices to either focus on the product and push it towards pro and premium features and continue growing at the current rate that we have. We had to be a bit choicy with allocating resources, and if we'd allocated those resources to a centralized exchange or multiple centralized exchanges, we would probably not be able to hit the targets that we've laid out in terms of delivering token utility in Session and expanding to millions of users as well. So short-term, non-TGE centralized exchange launch, but it is something that we're open to in the future.
Okay, will there be a plan to approach more popular crypto influencers or even paid advertising and awareness campaigns on social media following the release of Session Pro? Absolutely.
So we're always on the lookout for like influencers who are value driven and aligned with the project and can help us boost engagement with the token and the messaging application. When it comes to direct advertising and payment advertising, that'd be very effective when we launch Session Pro, because you'll have something like a product that people can purchase and advertising people towards that product as well. So that's definitely a path to take with when we launch Pro. But we're always open to crypto influencers who are value aligned with us and are keen to get involved with the project.
Excellent. Okay, I think we can move on to the second section now, which is going to be more focused on session features in terms of future session features, current session features, all of the technical and strategic plans for the application. First one's for you, Kee. Will Session allow users to have multiple account IDs on one device?
Short answer, yes. Long answer is it's going to take some time before we get there. We're really, all of the contributors that are working on Session are really heavily focusing on the first version of Session Pro right now, which will contain a few features. It's not everything that we want to offer in Session Pro, but it's like the initial offering with some lower technical lift features to get it out there and to kind of gauge appetite for Session Pro, and then add kind of additional features over time. So to give you an example, one of the things that we are looking at putting into Session Pro is increased group limits. So when you create a group, right now it's 100 members, and being able to extend beyond that to have groups up to 300 members, for example, may be a feature that we put in Pro. It's something that we're looking at quite heavily right now. But that's kind of something that we came up with, kind of in the last couple of months. We actually initially wanted to start the Session Pro offering with increased file sizes, which we think is going to be, it's one of the most requested features across all of the platforms, increased file sizes, like larger than 10 megabytes, which is the limit right now. But we decided to focus on some easier to deliver features, and then we're going to add stuff like increased file sizes later because it relies on LokiNet. It's a heavier technical lift. So yeah, it's like same with multi-account. Multi-account is one of the most requested features, but it will take a bit to build out. It's not the simplest feature, and depending on how it's implemented, it has quite a bit of complexity. So that's something that we'll look to add at a later point.
Cool. Chris, why are we managing a community in a closed competitor environment, that's talking about Discord, when session supports large group chats?
Yeah, so I think that each platform offers a different value proposition. So Discord's really good for having big communities with multiple channels and little warrens that people can discuss specific topics in. When it comes to a session community, as amazing as they are, it's quite difficult to have quite in-depth discussions when you have, say, 1,000 or 10,000 people in one channel. It's really hard to keep a topic or a thread alive and keep like a valuable discussion going on. So having, say, node operators, having moderators, having just like broad community and different like discussion topics is something that's quite hard to do in a session community right now. It'd be something that'd be awesome to have in the future. So it would be great to bring every single person across the session. I don't disagree with that. But for the time being, just given where people are and how you're attracting people to be in a specific community, it seems that Discord is the right place for that in this moment. And we're utilizing that to have a really engaging and sort of open communication with the community.
I'll just say off the back of that.
Yeah.
I'll just say off the back of that as well, like the session communities are still there to chat in, and we hang around those official communities at least to answer people's questions. I think like one of the biggest challenges that we've had with communities, in the last 6 months is just around moderation of those communities. Because session doesn't require a phone number to sign up or a real world identifier, moderation becomes much more challenging. And that's something that we're working on as well. We have these kind of capture bots that we're working on, sort of plug-in system to enable operators of communities to better moderate their communities. But that is something that, it's another task to put on the kind of list of tasks that we want to do. And right now, because we're focusing on pro so heavily, with the community's kind of moderation stuff has fallen into the background a little bit. But we do plan to get back to that point. And, looking forward into the next, 2-3 years, like down the road, I really do want to move people from Discord to session because, it's a good point. Like, you don't really want to be using your competitor or a competitor to session to be having, the session or hosting the session community. So the end goal is, I think, to bring everyone over to session. It's just not right now. It's just not there right now, I suppose.
Okay, next question. Key, session contributors recently released the session network page with information about session token and the network that powers session. Are there any other in-app awareness features for session token or the ecosystem behind session planned?
Yes, we're going to be making some additional tweaks to the session network page to bring the token and the app even closer together. So right now there's no link for how you would obtain session token if you wanted to from the session application. We'll be adding some links into the network page to the Uniswap pools. For example, if you want to buy a session token, you can do that there. That'll create a bit stronger of a link between the two. But longer term, we do want to look at stuff like wallet integration, for example. So that would be, having the ability to have an EVM-based wallet inside of session that you can, send session tokens to other users. You can also send other currencies to other users. We want to build that framework in a very similar way to how Telegram has done their wallet in-app, because we think that that's a really good design and has gotten a lot of Telegram users into the crypto world. So I think that's something that's on the longer term for us. And there's a bunch of things that we can do in the application as well, just to get people more familiar with session. So we'll be looking at that over the next kind of 6 to 12 months. But as I said before, like the focus is really just on Session Pro right now. So we are kind of rushing as fast as we can towards getting Session Pro in the application. And then it's about, okay, how do we actually tie the token and the application further together? And that's through some of those features like wallet integration.
Some exciting stuff there, Key. I think probably all of us have some thoughts about this question. Have you considered branding Session as a fun and cool yet private messaging app? Take a look at Family Wallet. Shout out to Family Wallet there, free plug. Have you considered making its Sessions UI look like that?
Actually, we did some work recently with some UX UI designers. I think this was 6 months ago or thereabouts. And they did suggest some changes to sessions branding to make it more approachable. I think we kind of have been focused on this kind of like getting this user who is like very technical, more of a crypto native user, someone who's looking for the most private and secure messaging application. And sessions branding thus far has really kind of been around that idea, which is why you kind of land on the session website. It's got all these kind of like glitchy, like kind of matrix style green like terminal stuff. But I think as we move from that highly technical user, that crypto native user, to a wider user base, it is right to also expand the branding and soften the edges on some of that more kind of cypherpunk branding that we have right now. So we are looking at some changes there. And also, I think we want to bring in the STF a bit more to some of the branding to talk more about our open source, like we're open source and we're running a non-for-profit. And there's all of these cool things about session that we don't necessarily talk about up front. But I think it would be interesting to bring some of those things in as well. So it's definitely something that we're thinking about.
Yeah, just to tack onto that, I think it was the correct decision to go with that kind of cypherpunk look originally. Session that's at the core, that's heart as a piece of technology. But now the technology is mature enough that really anybody can use it. And like he's saying here, it's time for the way that session looks and speaks to start to reflect that a little bit more. We've already done a lot of the research into what that will actually look like, and you'll start to see that playing out over the next 6 to 12 months, I would say. Okay, next question. If payments are made in fiat and converted to Sesh in the back end, will there be a native option to pay for Sesh directly inside of Session using a wallet?
Well, I would love to add such a feature. We're sort of, there's a bunch of rules in app stores that we have to follow. As much as it'd be amazing to just have direct Sesh payments in application, we have to work around some limitations. So it'd be great to do. I'm very for it. I would love to do it. It's obviously the first thing that we'd want to do, but we just need to make sure we're not getting taken off Google Play Store and App Store, because that's where the majority of our user base is. So it'd be a great thing to do. I definitely want to do it. It's a wait and see. We can probably do it in desktop versions, but maybe not in mobile versions.
Yeah, just bouncing off that, just to give a little bit more context. I mean, I think this is something that other people will have heard about as well. Epic Games is kind of battling this massive lawsuit against Apple right now, which is for the Fortnite game, because they want to be able to offer certain in-app payments for Fortnite, but they don't want to use the App Store payment mechanisms. They want to offer that payment mechanism themselves. And Epic Games just won that lawsuit in the US, which opens up our options a lot more for what we can do in the US App Store. But other countries aren't as permissive yet. So it seems like Apple is still kind of dragging their feet a little bit about offering kind of in-app payments with external payment mechanisms that they don't get their 30% cut on. So yeah, we have to balance both the in-app payment rules and also the cryptocurrency rules that the App Store and the Google Play Store have. And that's often a tricky balance to get right. So what you'll see first from Session Pro is that we'll offer in-app payments through Apple and Google. And then we will look at putting in external payment gateways so that if you want to subscribe to Session Pro using crypto or direct credit card payments or other PayPal, for example, those options will be offered outside of the application. So you can make your subscription there, and then you can kind of import it into one of the Session clients. So yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky thing, and relates a lot to what the App Store policies are and how they change over the next 6 to 12 months, because there is a lot of change happening right now.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Okay, how about making Session a platform where people can create, sell, and buy stickers? I know this is something you've looked into, Kee.
Yeah, stickers, they sound very easy on the surface, but there's quite a bit of technical complexity behind stickers. It is something that has been requested for a very long time and is a highly requested feature as well. I think people really like using stickers on Telegram, for example. But it is something that's a bit of a heavier lift. So I think that'll be something that we will look to do eventually, but it's kind of after the initial Session Pro comes out, after we put some more features in, fix some more core bugs to the application, then we'll be looking at stickers. But yeah, it involves like some file server changes, some client changes, and then you also need to consider how people upload their new sticker packs and then how people import those as well. So there's a few kind of tricky things there, but it's definitely something that we want to do in the future.
Excellent. Okay, I think that wraps up all of the questions about session features. We had a couple of questions about the STF, the Session Foundation, so I'll run through those quickly now. How will the Foundation respond to Switzerland's transformation into a privacy surveillance state? A little bit of a loaded question, potentially. I'm assuming this is referring to the proposed changes to a couple of ordinances here in Switzerland earlier this year relating to KYC and encryption. Luckily, Switzerland has a very strong privacy community. It's a grassroots community, and it's also a community with some major players, you know, like Proton and Threema. And Session, the Session Technology Foundation is very happy to have joined this community, and we will be pushing back against these proposals alongside our allies here in Switzerland. We've already participated in that initial consultation, and we're waiting to see what happens next. But obviously, we will always advocate for strong and responsible privacy laws, which I think the proposed ordinance changes are absolutely not. But of course, we're not going to do any, you know, whiplash kind of reactions. We're going to wait and see what happens, keep our heads straight for now. Hopefully, obviously, we're hoping for the best, and we're doing everything we can to pull in the direction of privacy and encryption. As this AMA is about the ecosystem, what specific opportunities are STF folks going to open for non-insiders? Which specific smart contracts are needed, and how will the STF communicate with non-insiders? I don't necessarily have the answers with respect to specific smart contracts. I think a lot of that work is already being done by existing session contributors. But something that we're looking to do from the STF side is open up a grants program, which will be open to the public. People will be able to make proposals for certain amounts of, you know, certain grant amounts in order to work on specific projects or activities. There'll probably be some sort of or chosen of like pre-designated sections that we'll be accepting proposals for. If you want some hints as to what those sections are going to be, I would point you towards the STF's ecosystem growth vision document, which is already public and outlines a lot of what the STF sees as being important development and education and communication steps to take session and grow it going forwards. Then the next question, you may want to jump in on this one as well, Chris. There's a few huge topics here. What is your take on DAOs, Swiss law, security classification, and Google TOS? Obviously,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
personally, just speaking for myself quickly, I'll let you jump in, Chris, but I'm a huge fan of DAOs, and I'd be very interested in introducing a DAO to the governance structure of the session ecosystem sometime in the future. It's not something that we're actively looking into right now, but absolutely something that is, you know, philosophically aligned with us.
Yeah, I agree with that concept. I love the concept of DAOs. I just haven't seen a DAO that's been super effective to date. But now there's a lot of technology out there that make it a lot more streamlined to manage a DAO. So I guess it's only getting more and more easy to actually create and run an effective DAO. It's something that I'm interested in. I've always been interested in DAOs, and I think the time is coming where DAOs are more effective. And yeah, I think it could be a good option for the Session Foundation in the future to implement some sort of DAO structure. But what that looks like right now is still unclear. With Swiss law, I don't know what that is as a question, but I like the sort of self-sovereignty. I like the concept. I like the good balance between freedom and responsibility as sort of a nation. Like you get all these really good rights, but you get all these responsibilities at the same time. And I think that it's valued by a lot of Swiss people. It's not just freedom. It's like individual responsibility. Like just down to an individual level. I think is really awesome. I like how. I don't want to get too much into the legal system, but I somewhat like the legal system. But if you look at any legal system from like a high level, you can always find issues with it and what you don't like with them. But there's a lot of good things in there as well, where they sort of lay out clearly, like this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. So just pick which path you want to take, and it makes it really easy. Say for session and session token, it is a utility token in Switzerland. Just follow these rules and everything's good. Whereas in America and Australia, it was very unclear. In many countries, it's very unclear, and you're just sort of walking down a minefield and hoping for the best. And yeah, so it's good in a sense that they've made that really clear, or pretty clear. Google terms of service, like which one, which line? Like there's so much stuff in those 50,000 page agreements that you sign every few weeks. I don't like signing something that big ever. At the same time, the frequency, but yeah, it really depends on like what part of Google terms of service they're concerning for people. But pretty much any big tech company will cover their ass immensely, and yeah, it's hard for a simpleton to even understand them, let alone read them every few weeks. So I don't really have much opinion on them other than they could just shorten them and make them a bit more easy for people to understand. And stop using people's data in a way that is not ideal.
Amen to that. Excellent. Okay. Well, I think let's move on to those. That was all of the questions for the foundation. We can move on to some final comments here. There are a couple of miscellaneous kind of questions. And if you guys want to hop on your soapbox as well, then you're free to do so in this section. Okay, Kee, is it planned to host a series of videos on the different cryptographic protocols and the architecture of Session?
I think that would be a really cool thing to do. One of the things that I guess we've struggled with, but it has also been, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like it's good, but it's also bad at the same time, is that a lot of the complexity of Session is hidden. When people pick up Session, they don't necessarily know that they're using a decentralized network and that yet their messages are being onion routed and they have this swarm that's storing their messages. And that's great for new users that are coming on to the network, because they don't have to get over this hill of massive technical complexity that often turns people away from new technologies. But at the same time, you also want to highlight the ways that Session is different and that it's actually providing an additional level of privacy and security versus, WhatsApp or Telegram. I think that's where Session contributors have been working on some of these new screens which have been coming into the application, which, very early on we added the path screen, which shows, your onion route in a very easy to understand way. And now we've added the Session network screen as well, which shows some information about your swarm and some other information about the Session token. In terms of videos and video content there, I think that would also be great to do, because you don't necessarily need to push it into people's face. If they want to understand how the network works, they can do some additional digging on that, and we can link them up to the docs as well. The challenge there is, of course, as soon as you create a piece of video content, the protocol changes a little bit, and now you have to update that video content again. And that's something that we've also struggled with, is keeping the docs up to date with the protocol, because the protocol moves so fast. But maybe I think it could be possible to build something that's more general, that talks about swarms, for example, or talks about onion routing and what Session is doing on that side without going too deep into the protocol level, so that it stays relevant over time. So yeah, definitely an interesting idea, and I think something that we will look to do in the future.
Great. Yeah, I would love to see that. All right. Well, I think that's all of the questions that we had to run through. Do either of you have any tangents that you want to go on, or final words that you want to leave the community with?
Yeah, I'll just say, like, I think the development side of Session is moving very fast right now, faster than it ever has before. There's more bugs being fixed by Session contributors. There's more features coming into the application. The process of actually putting new features in is starting to be really effectively streamlined. And a lot of that, I think, is through our focus on building stuff in a single library, which is called libsession. It's technical, but that essentially allows us to build the core of features once and then import those into the rest of the application. So I think we're really starting to see the benefit of that. And for users, I think the application is starting to feel a lot better. Reviews are going up. People are downloading Session at an increased rate. We're hearing stories of people being retained more than they were previously. So I think all signs are pointing towards positive growth for Session right now. And I think that's fantastic for not just Session users, but also the wider Session ecosystem that we're all participating in here.
Yeah, on the back of that, I guess, the transition, doing a token launch or a token transition, and whilst having an application with over 1 million users is a challenging time. But it's launched now, and the community sentiment's relatively good. And yeah, I just want to say thanks to all the sort of positive feedback and constructive feedback, and I guess support from third parties as well to launch and push forward. Really looking forward to pushing Session to its absolute limits, getting Pro out there, bringing in a lot more of the token features and information into the application, and really bringing those two communities together and expanding on that as well. So we're looking forward to the future, and really, happy and glad of the support that we've had to date as well from the community.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, look, I think we're in a really exciting phase right now for the ecosystem, for the wider space, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the community and all of the Session contributors and people that are part of this ecosystem that is growing and delivering privacy to people every day. So thank you for your time today, Kee and Chris. It has been a pleasure talking with you and answering all of these questions. Hopefully we'll be able to do another AMA soon. And of course, if you need to find us, you can find us in all of the community channels, either on Session or controversially on Discord, and of course on social media as well. So we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.